It's Windless Nerd Out time! What's up, you guys? Happy Windless Nerd Out time, coming to you from the Starbucks parking lot, me and JMO. So, what we are going to be talking about today is if it is actually more effective to do exercise in a fasted state in terms of fat burning, performance, and muscle gain. All right, but before we say anything, we got to say happy birthday, Steve Fasaro. Happy birthday, Scoob. I love you, man. This one's for you, brother. We'll talk about him a little bit more at the end. As for now, let's get into this discussion. So, Sean, I hope this answers your question first off before we get started. And let's kind of start with fat burning, because I think that's where a lot of us are probably the most interested here, and where maybe the biggest difference lies, okay, with exercising in a fasted state versus exercising in the fed state. So with no difference, one study was shown, I was reading today, no difference in overall energy expenditure was there between the group that had done aerobic exercise on the treadmill in a fasted state relative to the group that did such exercise in a fed state. There having been no difference in overall energy expenditure, there was a big difference in the respiratory exchange ratio, or the RER, which is just the ratio of carbon dioxide that we produce and expel relative to the amount of oxygen that we are consuming. And the RER was lower in the group that was doing the fasted aerobic exercise. And so what that means is they're using more oxygen, and what that means is they're using aerobic pathways with fasted exercise. And we know that the aerobic pathways in cellular respiration are those which involve, say, lipolysis and then beta oxidation, for example, breaking down fats, right? Because it requires oxygen and a lot of energy, right? And so if we're conversely working out without oxygen or with less oxygen, doing more high intensity stuff, for example, we're going to be breaking down sugar more. We're going through glycolysis and anaerobic respiration, right? And so since we had a lower RER with fasted exercise, fasted aerobic exercise, we're talking about aerobic exercise here today, then there is a greater propensity for fat burning. And in fact, another study showed actually 20% more fat was burned when exercising in the fasted state in the morning with aerobic exercise relative to the group who were fed doing this aerobic exercise in the morning. And again, one of the mechanisms is very complicated, but one they think may play a big role here is the lower RER, right? Now, as a general rule, when we talk about burning fat during or after a workout, what type is better for what? If you're doing mild to moderate intensity exercise, then you're going to be using more oxygen. You're able to get more oxygen while you're working out, and so that means we're using aerobic pathways. Once again, we'll be able to break down more fat during the workout. Now, conversely, if you're not getting as much oxygen, you're doing the really high intensity, short burst stuff, right? And you're just dying, gasping for air. Well, you're going to be going through the anaerobic pathways, going through glycolysis. You're not going to be burning breaking down glucose. You're not going to be burning as much fat at the time, but it will pay dividends in the back end, right? Where you're going to burn more fat throughout the rest of the day. Okay. And this leads us into our next point here when we talk about performance. Now, generally, we don't see. What's up? Yeah, Jamel's great. Hey, Ma, how you doing? Vichy, what's up, brother? And Judith, how you doing? Thanks for hopping on, you guys. James, what's happening? I know he's great. So what was I saying? So with performance, when it comes to mild to moderate intensity, the study that I was reading, it didn't show much of a difference with fasted versus fed exercise. But when it came to very high intensity, near maximal intensity stuff, there was an advantage conferred with having carbs around the time of the workout, right? It did improve performance. Now, this could be a little bit faulty, because the group that, didn't, one, how long were they fasting before it? Two, are they used to fasting that much? Because for me, I fast every day and my performance seems better. I'm so used to fasting. So if I eat before I work out, I feel weird. I feel like can't perform as well. I mean, I could, however much of that is mental, whatever, or placebo. But, I almost feel like I pretty much do feel like I have more energy, to an extent, not if I fasted for 3 days, but, if I've been fasting for those, 16 hours, 18 hours, and then get my workout in, I feel like I have more energy. I'm used to it. Maybe these subjects weren't used to it. So we can't really draw too many conclusions in terms of performance. For the most part, it's kind of insignificant. Now, I want to say with the fat burning too, it's somewhat inconclusive, where some studies show no difference working in a fasted versus fed state, working out in terms of fat burning, but most of them do show a difference, that you are burning more fat, you have a lower respiratory exchange rate, and you're going through aerobic respiration, and you're delving into those fat stores. And I think especially if you've already been fasting for that 12-hour period or 11-hour period, and you do some high intensity aerobic exercise, and it can kick you into ketosis a little bit quicker. We know that generally comes at about 12 hours of not eating, very basic, different for men and women, of course, and each individual, but generally, as a general rule, right when it starts is about 12 hours, according to Harvard, of fasting is when we start to, get into ketosis. And you can accelerate those hours, right? If you work out towards the latter end in a fasted state. So you worked out 11 hours, and you did an hour of intense aerobic exercise. Well, maybe instead of being 12 hours in after that workout, it's as if your body's 14 hours in. Right, you've accelerated getting deeper into ketosis. Right, so there's something to be said about how long you've been fasting, how regularly you fast, before exercise too. Right, because if you don't regularly fast, it will be stressful on your body. We're not even talking about the release of cortisol, these negative, endocrinological changes, right, that we could be going through. So let's talk about muscle mass before we keep rambling on here. We can talk about this all day. And interestingly, they saw no difference. A few studies I was reading in overall muscle mass over time with people who did endurance training in a fasted versus a fed state with carbohydrates. When I'm talking about a fed state with these, generally they give them carbohydrates, right, for energy.